Hi everyone, it's Carrie and welcome back to another video. It's so crazy to think that it has been so long since I actually sat in front of a camera and recorded. To be honest, it has just been a little bit crazy. A lot has been happening. I feel like a lot of these days recently I have just been so tired and drained that when I come inside, all I want to do is just like sit down, crochet, and sleep. It has been insanity, but I wanted to come on here because if you didn't see me posting a little bit, I had one of my really big markets. That was last weekend, April 20th. I did a market that is fairly close to me, but this was the same market that I ended up doing in November of last year. So I had a fairly good idea of like what the market could be. I was really happy because although there were I think 3 or 4 other crochet vendors at this market, I still did fairly well and still had a lot of traffic even though I was in a not good spot at all. So last year I got very lucky when I did this market because I was in a back spot, but in a spot that a lot of people walked down still, so I still had a lot of traffic. Last year I hardly had time to like sit. It was just like chaos the whole time. This year was different. I did get a back spot, which I was like, okay, well, you know, who cares, whatever. But the issue with the spot that I had is it was in the way back and it was kind of set up where I was, I think, the 4th almost to the end of all of the vendors. So a lot of times what was happening is you'd have the flow of traffic coming, and then once they kind of hit the beginning of the row, people would just like take a little peek down and see and then turn around and go back. A lot of people never even made it down my way or to my tent. Although the weather was really nice and we got really lucky because it didn't rain, it ended up raining the next day. It was a little bit windy, but nothing too bad. My tent neighbor ended up putting all of their sides up, and that was another thing that I think definitely blocked the view in terms of what people could see approaching from that side, because they had this like massive white wall that blocked a lot of my stuff. Like I think from when I was walking back one of the times, I could barely see like one of my dragons like peeking out just because of how the tents were so close to one another. Not to mention, it was so annoying because of the wind. The tent wall that they had up kept hitting my stuff when the wind would blow and kept knocking over all of my plushies and kept knocking the stands over, which was super annoying because that went on all day. And the other neighbor also had that same problem. They did not take the tent sides down, which was quite annoying. But we made it through. Had a lot of plushies flying for a little bit so I could figure out like the perfect distance away and all this type stuff. But overall, it was still a really good market. I definitely think my location was a factor in maybe limiting my amount of sales just because I really was not in a good spot. But you live and you learn every single market, and I'm hoping that as I continue to do markets and as I continue to work with this particular one, maybe I'll get a better spot. If not, who cares? I know a lot of the other crochet people were put at the front, which is fine because it's really good to space everyone out, but it was interesting that the other crochet people were put at the front, and then I had one crochet person that was essentially almost put right next to me. We had one table in between us, and that was quite a surprise because I know when I was unloading my car and they were unloading their car, I had talked to them at the previous market and everything, so we kind of knew one another, but both of us looked at each other and we were like, did they really just put 2 crochet people literally almost next to one another, like had one tent between us? That kind of blew my mind. Markets for me are like craziness, and I do have my first ever 2-day market that's coming up May 11th and 12th. And if you live in Georgia and if you want to come and see me, it is in Woodstock, and I'm excited and very nervous and very scared of being like just super tired because the market will be my first ever 2-day one. Saturday's hours are 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then Sunday hours are 11 to 5. It is a bit of a drive for me, so I'm definitely having to go out of my way. I want to say it's about 30 to 40 minutes for me, but I will go on Friday and set up and do all that fun stuff, and I'll probably be able to record a little bit more. This previous market, I was trying to do some recording and it just really did not work out because I was so exhausted. Like week leading up in the week after the market was just chaos. To give you an idea of my leading up time, Thursday was my grandfather's 100th birthday, and we wanted to go up and do a surprise party for him, but I've mentioned this before, my really full-time job, or the job that takes up a vast majority of my time, requires horses. I have my own stable. We have about 20 acres and we have about a 16 stall barn. So it's very difficult when you have a barn, and it's very difficult when you also have a barn like mine that is catered towards retired horses and horses that have a lot of special needs and a lot of medication needs, all that stuff. So it's very difficult to leave. But a friend of mine said she could come and help us out. So Thursday, I got up at like 3:40. My mother, who helps me with a lot of things, she got up at 3, and we both went out and we like started taking care of the horses, feeding them, turning them outside, starting cleaning the barn. I think we left here about 6:30. We drove 5.5, 6 hours to the coast of South Carolina. We got there, I think it was about like 12, sat down, had lunch, then the surprise party was like 2 to 4, I believe, and we ended up leaving like a little bit earlier. Then we turned around and drove the 5.5, 6 hours back home, and I want to say I was back home by 11. That in itself was a lot. I'm a person who gets extremely car sick, so just like the idea of being in a car like for 5 minutes really makes me nauseous. The idea of being in a car for 12 hours in one single day, I was so sick. That was literally the Thursday before the market. So Friday was chaos. I got in super late. I had to still wake up really early the next morning. In general, I get up every day at like 4:40, 4:50. So I like woke up, tried to do my horses, had to ride my horse because I couldn't ride him the day before, and I had so much market stuff to do because this time around at the market, I did go through and individually tag every single one of my plushies. I hadn't done that before, but I tagged everything and I had put it off until Friday. So Friday was like tagging things. I still had things that had to be finished up. I took some yarn with me when I was driving up to South Carolina and was crocheting the whole time. So I was like trying to do all of these things. And then essentially Saturday, the next day came around and I got back up at 3:40. And we did the horses. My friend came and also helped too. And then I think it was I had a 7 o'clock setup time. So I left my place at about 6:40 to drive over and then wait in line and everything. And then we sat up and then the market started at 10. The market technically went to 6 p.m., but it was kind of slowing really down. And the market people ended up coming by and were like, hey, if you want to start breaking down your tent at like 5 o'clock, you're more than welcome to. Or if you want to stay like set up, you can stay set up to the end. I was sitting there in my spot going like, it was already slowing down. I want to say the last 3 sales that I technically had for the day were all my friends who came and visited me. So there wasn't like a lot of traffic, especially where I was coming in, given the fact that at the time I had a horse that had to have medications at certain times, and I didn't schedule somebody to do those medications because I knew I could probably be back in time. I elected to break down my tent earlier and get home a little bit earlier. So I think I got back from the market at probably about like 6:10, 6:15, just because I, quite frankly, was very tired between everything. I was really just like done with the whole sitting outside, dealing with stuff. The previous market that I did, I was so busy constantly, and it was so good because I just did not have much time to like sit down and really realize how tired I was. But I definitely, on Saturday, when there was long stretches of downtime, it was definitely much harder because I really sat down and was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna fall asleep. Like, it was too difficult to stay awake. So yeah, quite frankly, after being at the market since 7 a.m., when like 5:20 came around, I was done and I quickly packed up my stuff and I wanted to get out of the place. The traffic got super bad because there's over 100 vendors. I want to say it's close to 150 vendors that attend this thing, and it's in a single street. So once one car gets parked and like if things get blocked up, you're not moving. So I was just dead set. I was like throwing things. My crochet bins are such a bad mess. mess right now. I need to reorganize them. But it was chaos and all that crazy stuff. I did really well writing down what I sold for the first little bit until I did not. It was a little bit different than the mass market where I had a lot of traffic all of the time. It was like you'd have downtime and then all of a sudden like 5 people would come, and then there was like downtime and then like people. So it was just, when the chaos happened, it was not spread out enough where I could really remember what was happening. So I don't really have everything written down. I will say some of the things, and I'll also tell you guys what my best sellers were, and of course the difference that I noticed from the November market, because there was definitely a really big difference that I picked up on this market, which was really good for me to see and probably for other people, just because November was different with having Christmas shopping and this just being a normal like spring, not really like Christmas around the corner. It definitely changed what I sold, the price point of the items that I sold, and how much I sold. Even to this market, I took a few newer items. I think right before this market, I had made a few like squid things. I was trying to focus a lot on smaller items just because I had a lot of big items. Like the video that you guys saw, like that's not all of my items. I still probably had like 50 items in a bin. I have so many big items in so little space. So I kind of focused a little bit more on smaller items before this market, especially my limited time. But small items definitely were my best sellers by far. Items like the axolotls that I made. I sold quite a few axolotls. Shockingly enough, this market, the axolotls that I sold the most of were the pink ones, and I want to say the purple ones, which is really funny because usually the green ones sell really well. The pink and purple definitely were the thing. Same thing with turtles. My pink and purple turtles sold way better than my green and blue ones, but I did still sell a good deal of turtles. My axolotls I typically sell for 18. My turtles I typically sell for 20. Just as like a kind of price point so you guys can see. I also sold quite a few of my mallards, chicks, and the roosters as well, and those as well were in an 18 price point. My best seller out of those 3, I actually think, were the roosters. People really were not a big fan of the chicks. I think I maybe sold 1, versus like roosters were definitely the best ones that sold. Mallards, I had a few people pick up, but the roosters just got the most reaction from people. I think it was just because they had that like little red thing. I don't know, people were loving the roosters. I ended up selling out of my capybaras that I brought. I think I had 5 or 4 of them, one of those 2. I had made enough because I only had like half a skein of yarn, so I just made as many as I could, and this was the first market that I was really bringing the capybaras. I think I maybe had them at the previous market, but that market was just so small that I really don't count it as like a big thing. I sold out of all my capybaras pretty early on, and I even had people coming back later in the day that were like, oh, do you still have the capybaras? And I was like, no, I sold those hours ago. The capybaras were another item of mine that I had at the 18 price range. I almost sold out of all of my Pegasus. I brought 3 Pegasus, and I want to say I sold 2. The only Pegasus I did not sell, I believe, was my one with the blue mane. I might be wrong, but I do know that I have 1 Pegasus left, and my Pegasus I usually sell for 35. I sold a few penguins, I think like 2 or 3, so that was good to see because I really didn't know if there was still a demand for penguins. I actually even had a few people ask about different color penguins, like my blue penguins, and I didn't even know to make any more because I didn't know, first of all, if anyone would want penguins because it's not Christmas time. So definitely next market, I'm gonna bring like 1, maybe 2 of like a purple one, a blue one, and a pink one, and then of course normal penguins, just because I did get asked for a blue one and I was surprised. This time around, my new version of the bees that I've been doing definitely got more love, which I was happy to see because the previous market, nobody looked at them. And I was like, should I go back to doing the normal bees? Like what should I do? But this market, they definitely got the love. I think I brought 10, and I want to say I sold about 5 to 6. These ones I did do at a more expensive price range, and I did them at 15 just because they do require a little bit more work than the other bees I was doing, but I had a few leftover bees that I did leave on the table, and I will actually say it was almost more of a selling point because people would come up and they would see like this one bee and it was with acrylic yarn, and they would be like, oh, well, I don't really like how this is not fluffy because it was the only thing I had really in acrylic yarn were the previous bees. And so I'd be like, oh, look, this is another bee and it's soft and it's squishy and it's short. And they're like, oh my God, yeah, I want this one. So it ended up kind of working out that I had the other bees up there, and I'm gonna keep the other bees with me until they're basically gone, and I'm hoping not really to have those bees because they're just super generic, and I feel like every single crochet person has those bees, and I really just don't want them anymore. I did sell quite a few bees, so I was very happy about that. This whole market, I only sold, I believe, 5 big items. It was kind of surprising just because I thought that some of the items I brought would bring more attention, and yes, they did get people's attention, but people were not buying them. So it's definitely a difference I noticed from my November market to this one is I think in November, I sold out of pretty much all of my big items. I think I only had like very few big items left versus I had a lot more small items. This market around, I think because it was not Christmas, people did not want to spend as much money. I heard a lot of parents were telling their kids like, you can pick something under $20. A lot of my big items did not sell. And actually, I want to say quite a few of my big items that did sell were not to kids, they were to adults. So I had one person who picked up a panda that I had made right before the market, and I sold the panda for $50. And this one was for a little girl because she like latched onto that panda and was just like not leaving without the panda. So she got the panda, that one was for $50. I sold one of my bunnies holding an egg. I had brought 3, I sold one, that one was for $50 as well. And I think it was my gray one that I had brought. I had made 2 different types of sharks before coming to this market. I made a hammerhead shark and I had made a great white shark. The hammerhead required a lot more sewing than I realized, so it was much more expensive. I want to say it was like $55. It was just a lot of sewing. And I did end up selling it to an older woman who had like all these shark tattoos. She was showing me them when she was getting it. And my other one did sell. And that one was a little cheaper. It was $35 because it did not require as much sewing or anything crazy. But that was pretty much all of my big items. I did sell a Snuggle, the bunny that I had made before. I think I sold it for like $30. I had made another bunny that was a different version. It was one of the baby bunnies. I sold that one for $35. I ended up selling my favorite cow that I made from my pattern, which was the white and brown one with a flower crown. I sold that one for $35. Yeah, the big items, I felt like once they got above like 30, just did not sell that much. I will say by far my like big sellers were my capybaras because I did sell out, turtles, axolotls, my mallard / rooster combos, but by far the one that sold the most was definitely the cats that I had made, the little loaf cat. I put them at 20 just because they're pretty straightforward and simple. I mean, I probably could do them at 25, but I just wanted to do 20, and I think I brought 8 and I came home with 1. They were definitely a really big bestseller. For my market coming up, I've already started to prep like a lot more of them, especially with it being a 2-day market. The cats definitely were like the big thing, and I had them all in their own little section and stand. So people just gravitated towards them. The cats definitely seem to be very popular. I know the other crochet person that was kind of close to me also had cats as well. I'm not certain what they were priced at, and they use a different yarn. I would say at least the 2 crochet people that I kind of walked by both use Burnett Blanket, and since I use Sweet Snuggles Light, of course our things look different. The cats definitely were like the big thing. So because of the fact that I did not write down everything individually, I do still have a rough idea of how much I made, and I'll be able to tell you guys. I took 3 forms of payment: cash, Venmo, card. The vast majority of people paid in credit card. So I have my Square reader, and if you use Square and you're gonna do markets, just make sure you set it up to put the tax in. So there's an option on the Square where you can add tax, and I think I did like my state tax, which I can't remember off the top of my head. So anytime anyone uses like credit card, Apple Pay, a lot of people use Apple Pay, but you have the option where you can run that on the Square and everything. It automatically charges the tax that I put down to the card, and even on my sign that I include on my table, it specifically says that if you use card, you will be charged tax. So credit card was definitely the main way to pay. I would say after that, it was kind of like a tie between Venmo and cash. I had a few people pay me with Venmo, but I would say some of my people who pay me in Venmo were also repeat customers. I personally knew. I already knew that they paid Venmo. One of them came up and I was like, oh yeah, you want Venmo, right? And she's like, yeah, you know me. I was like, I know, because you bought stuff from me before. It's kind of a tie between Venmo and cash. I will tell you guys how much I made on Square. So on total using the Square, so this does not include cash or Venmo, I had 42 sales. The average sale for the orders was about $26.31. In total, the gross sales from Square was about $1,105. You guys don't want to know how long it took me to figure out how to say that. I want to say I had about almost $40 in fees from what I'm looking at because they took the fees already. Just to give you a little idea, the market that I did in March, I had used Square too, and I had made $340. So definitely an increase on the Square side of things. And then on Venmo and cash, I think combined I made probably roughly like $450 in total. I believe with everything, I haven't sat down and really like calculated the nitty gritty. I want to say I made about $1,500, just still super good. I was so worried just with my really bad spot, then with it being spring and it not being close to a holiday. But granted, this market is much more expensive to do. This is the most expensive market that I do. It's even more expensive than the 2-day market that I have coming up in a couple weeks. It was $220 per day, and there's only one day. The fee is definitely a lot. Whenever I do this market, I just have to pray and just go like, please let me cover my table, because it just kills me when I pay the fee every time. That's how much I basically made at this market. I'm looking forward to my market in the upcoming weeks, and I'm also looking forward to being back and recording YouTube videos. I just needed to like get through the week. I had so much going on between that, and then we had to put a horse down, and it's just like, it was a lot. So I'm looking forward to being back and recording and getting back in the groove of things. Just being back on YouTube. I've missed sitting in front of a camera and rambling on for a couple, like 30 minutes. So I hope to see you guys in the next video. And let me also know if you guys are going to any markets soon and what you're also making, or if you've been to markets, what is your best seller? So I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.